Hey, welcome back, everybody. Of course, this is Dr. Keith McNally, and this is the Question Guy podcast. And I'm here with Jeannie Dougherty, and we are going to talk to you about the most important topic we can possibly talk to you about. Actually, two of them, money and your well-being. So these are two things that I talk about well-being, and I've been talking about it more lately as time has been going on, because that seems to be, as we've transitioned out of COVID and people are kind of regrouping and becoming more self-aware and self-conscious about their own health, those conversations are becoming more frequent. Now, I haven't had too many conversations about money only because nobody's really wanted to talk about it. I don't know if they're scared to talk about it or that's just not their thing. But you are not scared to talk about money.
No,
Why are you not scared to talk about money? Because money seems to be the most frustrating thing for most people.
true. It often is the most frustrating thing. What I find is that a lot of it depends on your own money psychology that you have within yourself, as well as if you have a business, or you go to work. And so those dynamics are just, for a single person, it can be like that. When
Okay.
you add complexity is if you are in a family, if you are married or a long-term partnership and there's money that exchanges, ooh,
Mm.
that can be complicated. And then it can add more complexity when you get into other family members. So if you have a family member living with you, or you're dealing with your parents, or you have children, you want to send them to school, you've got to pay tuition, you want to plan your own retirement. Those are all big money questions that most of us will have to face in our lifetime, some way, somehow.
So do you work in all of those? Because
Yes,
that's a lot.
yes.
So, or do you focus just with people's personal finances or with businesses? Or
So what I work with is their brains, their actual money brains.
whoa,
And
what?
yeah, I know. Did I stump you a little bit
A money
there?
brain.
Yes.
So that I've never heard anybody call it that. What is that?
Okay. So your money brain roughly lives on the left side of your head, if you will, the left hemisphere,
Okay.
and it controls more what we call your data, your logic, the day-to-day things.
Okay.
And so most of us are taught about survival from our money brains. So we either learn it, as maybe a parent might be sitting down with you and explaining what it is that you need to do to make money, or what is it you need to do to save money, or we don't spend money on this in this family, or who do you think we are? We're not rich. So those are very common things that people will hear growing up.
Hmm.
And then you might get your first job, or your first real job or big job,
So
you
you
know,
like college or after college?
right. Could
Okay.
be. Yeah.
Okay.
And you want to, maybe you went on a ton of student loans. Maybe your parents helped you out. Maybe you figured things out enough that you've got your finances okay. But whatever it starts out in your life that you've got money, you will often repeat, whether you are consciously aware of it, the patterns that you learned in your childhood. Now,
Hmm.
you might have had really easygoing parents who were like, they were flush and they were like, honey, go spend on whatever you want. Go ahead. And some people have that. And it's
Okay.
not necessarily they grew up with a trust fund. They just had family members that were like, we're just going to give you money. Like it was just easy. They had money. They weren't worried.
Are you
And
saying it's
so,
a bad thing or does it
no,
really matter? Or
it's
it's
just a
real
thing.
neutral?
Yeah, it's just a thing.
Okay.
It's sometimes, like what I've heard is that when somebody has like money, but they're given to it like in really small amounts and just like, go ahead, go play with it. As a child, you're like, I got money. I'm so excited. I'm gonna go use it.
Right.
And then if they get older, they're like, I want to go do this. They're like, oh, sure, because it's a little thing. It's not like, can we buy a new car today? We should move to a new house. Like kids will say things like that without any awareness of how money operates. And
Right.
if you're a parent, perhaps that's having some stress or worried about your money, you might be like, are you kidding me? What are we doing? Versus a parent who might be like, we like that house, but we want a bigger house later. So we're just going to keep this house. Like it's different how your parents could respond, right?
Is it
So,
all about what
mhm,
your parents are saying
no.
or actually how, no, no, because you said it was a money brain. So, and we learn by what we're told, but we also learn by what we see
And experience.
and experience. So if you see your parents, every year, leasing the latest car, getting a new addition to the house or whatever that looks like versus, I didn't grow up with a whole lot of money. And
Right.
at 18 years old, guess what I did? I
I
joined the
know.
Marine Corps, right?
Congratulations.
Well, that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because again, I didn't grow up with money, so I wasn't taught how to how I wasn't taught about money, period, up until 18. And by golly, not a good thing when you join the Corps and you're an adult out on your own and mom and dad aren't there to kind of say that you should do this or you should do that.
Yeah, so I love that you said, I really wasn't taught anything. What you might have been taught, and again, this is a family values around money, is that sometimes they will not, parents or a parent will make the decision not to involve the child or children in any kind of money questions or money situations because they don't want to worry you, or more importantly, they don't really know what to say or how to talk about it. So if you decided to join the Marine Corps, they were like, great, college is paid for, we don't have to deal with this, if that was the
And
thought.
true, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Or was it, oh great, they're going to teach him to be a man, I'm good, I'm done, I'm out, or a leader, however you think of it. So it's all done, so they kind of like, he's 18, he's on his own. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, maybe you did your own laundry, maybe you did your own chores at home, maybe you did all this stuff. But it's a different thing when you have to distinguish in your money brain what is a want and what is a need.
Hmm.
And when you're young, you usually get what you want because everything from a need perspective is provided.
Mm-hmm.
So when you grow up and you have to start making financial decisions on your own, like, are you gonna buy, let's say, takeout because that's what you want? But really, what your food budget is much smaller in terms of need, meaning you're going to blow through your cash pretty quickly or put it on credit cards or whatever you're going to do, because you want what you want and you always got this at home. So why not?
And for those who do transition like from a young age,
Mm-hmm.
in 17, 18, 19, when if they go right into the military,
Right.
they get a paycheck
Yes.
and the government's going to pay you a very small salary, but it's a salary nonetheless. And it's yours because you're up until like your E4, E5, whatever, I forget the rank, where you could live off of base. They take some monies out of your paycheck, but your house basically, the barracks is paid for.
Right.
You don't necessarily see it, you don't miss it because you don't see it leave. I mean, you can check the stub and whatever. Um, Go to chow hall, so your food is paid for unless you want to, grab some stuff at the vending or whatever. So a lot of the needs are met.
Yes.
And so everything then becomes a want for somebody in that position. So
Right.
what do you want? I want a new car. I want a stereo. I want new clothes.
Yeah.
And you still don't get that. You don't get to learn. At least, a lot of young people don't get to learn if they're in that situation.
Right. And so, what happens is that people go live their lives however they want to do it, however they spend their money, however they save their money. And then, unless they're kind of reminded, like you might want to have a savings plan, here as you're, in the military, whatever branch it may be,
Mhm.
then they might move towards that and they might have a conversation with their parents, etc. But eventually they're going to go live their lives. But there's other things that could happen. Could be that they might have a child or they might get married or might do that separately because that could happen.
It could happen. Yeah.
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 Or it might be there's a health issue
Mm.
that meaning their own health. So whatever the plan was, that might, change. It might be that their family's got major health issues and that becomes a financial concern. It can be many, many, many things that can switch or change. And it is with these changes we don't always adapt because we don't have the right money skills because we didn't quite learn them. What we did as children most of the time is misinterpret sometimes, or we got it loud and clear, but a lot of times we misinterpret what our parents said and did
Mhm.
in many situations. But when it comes to money, if parents aren't honest and aren't telling you things, then you will probably misinterpret some of the experiences you've had because you didn't know. I mean, how would you know that you didn't have any money this week when, the house is paid for, there's air conditioning or there's heat, depending on the time of year, there's food in the fridge. Why would you think that you couldn't go get something you wanted versus a
Right.
parent might be like exhausted and dealing with some other, financial issue, like maybe they got laid off or something like that. So that's how sometimes people misinterpret stuff, like there's a cute story I
Well, are you
remember.
saying, but I didn't mean to interrupt, but are you saying that all of
Mhm.
those nuances should be communicated to children? Like
If,
I
if,
got I got
if
laid off today.
anything is going to be communicated about money,
Okay.
hopefully it's done in a way that the child understands that, so it's age appropriate.
Okay.
And hopefully it's not done in a way of like, what were you thinking? Meaning like a heavy judgment around it. And it's, maybe having to explain, well, there's some other things that, that are on our budget, besides going to say a movie and eating popcorn on Christmas Day, for
Okay.
instance, something like that, and then, maybe explaining that the money covers many members of the household, not just what they want.
Okay.
So that's an example
So
of
those things need to be
it's
communicated.
helpful. It's
Okay.
helpful if it's communicated. I mean, kids are going to think what they're going to think, but many times, like I said, if a child doesn't know all the intricacies of, a financial problem that a parent may be experiencing, and then a parent's like, what are you talking about? We won't spend any money on you. Why do you always think and then what does the child grow up with? Oh, I guess my needs or, what I wanted wasn't allowed. So they might
Or not
revert back
important. Yeah. Yeah.
in adulthood to like, I'm going to spend money on myself no matter what. I don't care. And
Yeah.
there are people like that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
they usually get into big, big financial trouble because people are like, don't you know what your bills are? Don't you know how to save? And they're like, I'm not doing that. That's what my parents told me. I'm not doing that. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just
And
so
that's
you
part of your
know,
money brain.
yes,
Okay.
when couples often get together, one is a spender, one is a saver. Now, is it possible you can get two spenders? Yes. Is it possible you can get two savers? Yes. But overall, there's going to be some mirroring and some opposition at the same time, So you both might be really clear on like, hey, the mortgage has got to get paid. We have to have gas in the car, food on the table. The utilities have to be paid, healthcare, all that stuff. Like,
Mhm.
so what I would call the needs of the family are handled. But let's say you have a child and they want to do something extra, so it's like something they don't need, but they want. So it could be taking a ballet class, going joining a soccer team,
Mhm.
maybe joining an elite soccer team, meaning they really got talent. And so then you're like shelling out the cash for dance and, like equipment and, all this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And many parents do that because they want to give their child either what they had and maybe their family was wealthier, or they want to give their child something they never had. So sometimes they're going to spend like crazy. Oh my God, I gave you all these things. And the kid was like, well, I didn't want this. I just did this because you wanted me to.
Mm.
So that becomes an interesting discussion later. So I'm supposed to do what you tell me, That's adolescence, right? Um,
But
Go ahead.
but you were going to tell a story earlier, and I did interrupt you. I didn't know if it was still on the tip of your head. Um, did you want to tell that story?
Oh, yes. The story is that, remember the days we used to write checks? Do you remember that? We'd break out the
Late,
check.
I still write a check. What are you talking
Okay,
about?
you're still writing checks. Great. Because, the thing is now with my phone, people are swiping.
Yeah,
So, people are like, people write checks, but
I'm behind the times.
that's okay. You're actually still part of the curve. You're just having a transition to the e-money kind of concept, so
And
to
it's
speak.
hard to teach an old dog new tricks.
Well, there you go. Not always, but there you go. But
Okay.
basically, grandma was out shopping and she was at like a major department store. Remember those things? Major department store. So it was like a Sears or a Macy's or something like that.
Hmm.
And he goes, look, grandma, I think we should buy, it was like a toy or something. And she's like, no, honey, we don't have money for that right now. And he looks at her checkbook and he goes, but grandma, you have more checks.
Right.
So in his mind, if you have a check, you have the money. And he's not wrong. But she's like, oh, I have to teach him later, that kind of thing. But he's, 5. He wants a
Mhm.
toy. Grandma, there's more checks.
And I heard, and this is some time ago.
Yeah.
But I heard a similar story in terms of an ATM machine. You know,
Yeah.
you put a piece of plastic into this machine, and out comes money as if it's always going to come out in whatever I ask for. So it's the same idea that even though it's not, we can't touch it,
Hmm.
it's still there.
Right.
Yeah.
And how some people kind of like goofed in the early ATM days is that there was a rule. Now, I don't know if it's still happening, but there was a rule that if you were negative, you didn't get your card back.
Oh, really? Wow. I don't know. I never reached that point, but
It
I,
happened to my sister. She joined this bank or whatever she was told to by my parents. And she's like, that's so weird. It won't give me my card back. I don't have any money. You think at least give me my card back? And I was just like, uh, and why did the bank do that at the time? I think it's because they wanted to have a conversation with one of their members to say, hey, please pay attention to your spending.
hmm.
Because when you overspend, then you end up, you can rack up hundreds in fees. And then,
But that's not something I think tellers or bankers do. I mean, do you know if
it
that's
happened to her at the
well,
time.
I mean,
Yeah.
so well, I mean, having that conversation, like the educational component of teaching adults how to handle their money. If
Mhm.
it didn't come from your parents, it's got to come from somebody, i.e., you and people like
Right.
you.
Right.
I've never noticed a bank. I've never known a bank or a banking system to call call you and say, we didn't have a
Well, they didn't call
conversation.
her in. They took her bank card so she could no longer bank.
Right,
She
right.
could
Yeah,
not
I
access
get
her
that. Yeah,
funds. So
yeah,
she had to go into the bank and say, "Hi, I'm so and so. Yeah, it's really me. Here's my driver's license. I think the ATM took my not only, I don't have any cash, but it took my card." And they were like, "Yeah, because of your spending."
right.
And then she was like, "Oh." And
But
so,
do you
yeah,
know because you are what is your title?
I am a certified money coach and a mental fitness coach.
Okay, so you are a coach. You do have the credentials to literally teach people how to create a money brain. I'm going to use your words that works for them.
Yes.
And that's essential because, again, going back to the beginning of this conversation, that may be something that's very much lacking. And I think because, well, not because there's parents who don't even know how to parent anymore. And we're in 2021. And so teaching about money,
You mean
teaching about health,
2022? We're going into
2022,
2023. It's
and
been
we're
a
about,
blur, hasn't
and it
it?
has been a blur. So we're in the 21st century is probably what I meant.
There you go.
And I think and what I s- and the world is kind of getting flipped on its side, and
Sure.
we're not teaching what we again my generation. I'm half a century old. What those initial values were about just being healthy, about being money conscious or money aware. How to save up for stuff. Don't go millions of dollars in debt just because you want to have a life that looks good but really isn't good. So, so what's so what do you do as a money coach?
So as a money coach, as I said before, I work with their money brains. What I do is I help them harness their winning money power, which is on the right side of their brain, roughly.
So can you give away some stuff? I mean, ideas about how that works, not give away stuff, because I don't want because you're a coach and I want people to come to you and say, wow, I really I need to know. Um,
Well, I also offer a free money masterclass. It's weekly. It's not this happening this week because we're right in the middle of the holidays, but
right.
next week I'll be offering a free money masterclass that goes more in depth about the money brain issue or like how to understand it. What is it that you need? But to suffice it is what I do is I coach people to access what I'd say consistently and routinely the right side of their brain. So when they want to look at a money question, they're not just in a place of fear and worry and anxiety and anger and doubt, and I could continue.
Mm,
Instead, they're thinking from a creative standpoint before they take action. They're looking at a way to navigate. So, how do you forecast? Like, let's say your question is, I want to have money for New Year's Eve. A real simple question. How are you going to do that?
okay.
Well, do you have a job? That's helpful. If you don't, is what's your income stream? So do you have books? Do you have a business? Because it's basically you're either employed or you're self-employed.
Mm.
Right? Or you own a business, something like that. That's basically the two classifications.
But you need to have
And
money.
well, or do you need to do something different? Right.
Okay.
So what might be is that you're going to look at your money and you're going to say, huh, I know that if I go out this year and I'm going to just pick something kind of random, let's say you go to a nice event, it might be a few $100s just to get in. you know, because you're kind of late in the game, you know, because you haven't gotten, say, a ticket or something like that. It might be you're just going to go to a friend's house. So really, you're just going to need, you know, maybe some money for booze, assuming you're over 21. We'll play it safe, assuming you're over 21. It might be that you're going to do an all-night game party. So it's like food and maybe some alcohol, you know, maybe bring in some games. So again, it might be a couple $100,
Mhm.
depending on what you spend and, you know, what you eat, if you're bringing for more, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I give you just different examples. But asking that very simple question, you know, I'm going to need to have some money. Go back to the want versus the need. I want to go out. I need to have money. What is it that I need to look at? So first things first, please look at your numbers. Please go see what it is. So if you have a job, I'll make this one real simple. If you have a job and let's say you'll get paid by, let's say next Thursday, also go look and see if you have any bills, anything that you owe,
Right.
because that might be coming out already or you're expected to pay, et cetera, right? So whatever is left might be enough to go out, but will it leave you time for food for the rest of the week or gas money or anything that might be annual that might be due January 1st or January 2nd?
Mm.
That is a better way of looking at your money. What do you have? What would you like to do? Where would you like to go? So for instance, let's say you know that you've got really $50. You really don't have a couple $100 for New Year's Eve. So it might be that you're going to go to your friend's house and maybe bring, like, you know, I don't know, some takeout that's good for you, or maybe you'll bring a dish or something and you'll bring some booze, but you're not going to bring everything, you know?
Mhm.
So that's an example of like kind of working within not your means necessarily or your limits. It's just understanding your money brain and how you can use it differently. And that's a simple example. Where forecasting gets very challenging for all adults is how the heck are you going to make it to retirement, whether you have children or not, no matter what your health looks like, no matter whether you own a home or not. That's when people are like, I don't know. So they go to financial experts. This is not a bad thing because they can talk to them about ways to save with certain financial products. None of this is bad. It's just financial information. That's just
Right.
the financial system we work with here in this country. Every country is different, and also money looks different in different cultures. So what I encourage people to do when they think of their winning money power, then, you know, you have options, you have choices, you have ways to navigate a situation. So for instance, I had a conversation not that long ago with somebody who was like, I wanna move out. I want to move out
Of
to a bigger place,
oh, okay.
you know, and like who doesn't usually, you know? And I said, have you thought about moving out and actually getting your rent a little cheaper? And they're like, but that's not going to work because it's, you know, and that's what I mean. That's a classic money setup that your left side of your brain has told you you're never going to find a place that's going to work within quote unquote your budget.
Mm.
So when
So
people don't,
we put self-limiting thoughts into our head.
yes,
Okay.
because we panic if something is we think is too much money. So for instance, let's say you want to own a home and I'm going to make up a mortgage rate here, like in terms of a monthly budget, you know, like, oh, your mortgage is going to cost you 3,000 a month. And depending on the area you live in the country, that might be pretty reasonable for the size of house that you've got. And depending on your income or dual incomes, that
Mhm.
might be okay. And if you don't have any other major bills, it might be just fine. You know, 3,000 a month is fine. You know, that's not bad.
Yeah.
And you're really happy with that. Other people would be like, oh my God, there's no way I can pay student loans and my car note and this. And yet, when you kind of look at their numbers, they're pretty close to 3,000, if not $4,000 or $5,000 in expenses a month.
Well,
And so that's when you're like, hang on, have you thought about looking at your money differently instead of looking at it from, oh no, oh my gosh, I can't afford to live here, it's too expensive. Like this is somebody I knew years ago, and they kept complaining, like, in order to go on a date and to have two meals and a drink, or two drinks I should say,
right.
alcohol for sure, it
Right.
was not going to be $20.
Oh, yeah, no.
And I was kind of like, well, did you want to go to lunch? Where'd you want to go to lunch? You know, like, because, you know, some people are really savvy. They're like, oh, I'm part of this club and I get money off here, or the owner knows me and I get a discount or whatever.
Mhm.
And again, I'm not trying to say that you should run to, you know, save, but think of it outside of the box a little bit. Because if you want to have a nice meal or it's on a date or something like that, then plan for it so that you can enjoy it, but not from a place of, well, I can't go on more than, 2 dates in a week because I just don't have that kind of cash. And I've seen people say that, like, I gave her all my money. And then it was Christmas and they wanted to make sure that it was like a four-figure gift from the person. I know, $1,000 or more. And I'm sort of like, how long you been dating them? Because even married people don't get that.
Well,
Right.
well, that's a
Because
lot to think about.
they're
And
using their money as a way to gain favor. Again, is this a want or a need?
so how do people feel about their money? Because
Hmm.
our emotions have a lot to have a big play in whether we save, spend, how we save, how much we save, how much we spend. Do you
Hmm.
have to deal with people's emotions? Not
So
just,
money is emotional no matter what you do with it.
okay.
So
Well,
that's why we have to combine the
well,
logic.
I know you talked about the fear of, because it sounds like people want to control it and it's controlling them.
Yes.
But the emotional, like buying a house, the house I live in. I always read stories about the actual process of buying a house can be scary. It wasn't necessarily scary for me. Now, writing my signature down 5,000 times on these documents was a different thing altogether. Um, and it was really weird how when it finally came down to actually buying the house, um, and I don't even know what to call the person, but she said, you stop payments and we take it back. And it was like really weird the way
The mortgage lender.
yeah, sorry, yeah, and she was really weird that she even said that. It was like, it wasn't like a
It's required by
congratulate.
law for her to say that.
Oh, really?
Think about it.
Well,
If
I don't know. I thought, congratulations, you just bought yourself a house. It would have been really cool.
that's
But
at the end, but
yeah,
somewhere along the lines of, when you sign this document that says if you do not what actually make these payments,
we take it back. Yeah.
that's the law.
Oh, okay. I mean, I didn't know that part, but it was like it was all good. The process was rather seamless. I let the professionals do what the professionals do, and I just made sure that I had the money in the bank and the job to, continue making payments. But
Sure.
then that one thing he said, do I really want to do this now? Because she kind of made it kind of scary at
Yes.
that point.
Because that's the whole point of the loan. The
Okay.
loan is an agreement. And so, again, psychologically, this is pretty scary depending on how you feel about your money. So, if you're like, gosh, I'm so happy I made this mortgage. But as you just said, many people buy a home and the home owns them. They don't own the home, meaning
Yeah.
psychologically, they're like, so this is what happens with a lot of first-time home buyers. They scrape all this cash together for the down payment, they throw it in, and then it's going to take them 10 years to furnish the house.
Yeah. Yeah. When I have my conversation with my daughter, and like I said, she's 12, and people say, well, you're a homeowner now. I tell them I'm a home buyer. I won't own the home until I'm dead because it's 30 years out. And I usually gauge how much of the house I actually own. And I usually start with her bedroom. Well, we own the foot. We own the first square foot, and then it expands like every month. And so, but it is kind of scary, but I never wanted it to be scary.
Have
And
marginalized your power. Like, I only own a square foot of my
I do. I only own a square
bedroom.
foot of my house. So how should I rethink my home ownership?
How about
Teach me
you're
some money brain
happy?
skills.
Yeah, how about you're happy that you own your own home and you successfully make your mortgage payment a month? And the truth is, you do own your own home, and anything were to happen to you, depending on your estate and will, which of course we would never want, either there will be money to pay it off, or your daughter and would just move on, maybe with her mom. I don't know the full story, but like that's kind of normal, right? So
Hmm.
you don't want to always act like the home owns you, or I only own a square foot, like that right there. It just
So those
it's
are
not empowering.
I'm restricting. What am I doing? I'm
Well,
doing
you're
bad
definitely
things.
restricting yourself. Yeah, you're
Okay.
restricting yourself, and you're also disempowering yourself by saying we only own this much.
Okay.
Instead of saying I qualified and I am responsible for this home and I'm doing a great job.
Because I want to be empowering. I want to use those words that make me both feel good and in my money brain now know that I'm doing the right thing.
Well, you are doing the right thing by owning the home and paying the mortgage and, the taxes and whatever else that happens with
But
the
I want
house.
to feel good about it too.
Well, here's where, again, money psychology steps in. And, the way you can feel good about your home is that you take pride in it. So you keep it clean, you keep it updated, you don't complain about like, well, we really wanted the $450,000 home, for instance.
I saw some
But
of those.
yeah, but instead we only got the $350,000 home. Oh gosh, woe is me, so poor. Instead of like my house is like my sanctuary. I grow my own vegetables in the backyard if you have that. Or, I create an amazing podcast in my house. I absolutely love waking up every day and, when the sun's out, I see it and I feel really safe in my house. I get to, raise my daughter safely. Like,
Right.
so that's thinking of it very differently as an asset instead of a liability. So that's, definitely accounting language. Is this an asset or a liability? Depends if it's paid off if you talk to an accountant or financial expert. But I always encourage people to look at what you own, even if it's on a payment process, that you're doing this, meaning the mortgage. Take pride in it because that actually empowers you to make better decisions instead of like, you think the roof is going to go next year.
I put a new roof on.
See, you've got a new roof. You got a warranty on the roof. Tell me you got a warranty.
Yeah, it got on two years ago.
Mhm.
So that looks good. It actually matches the house better, the color
See,
wise.
see.
Yeah.
So you invested in your home, and now you have a better looking home, and it's a safer home. And so, congratulations. Like that's normal conversation, and that's a great way to talk about money instead of like, you kidding me? We put on a roof this year. Of course, we're not going on vacation. It's like, oh,
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And to be quite honest, I do feel better about my home.
see. And a lot of it is it's taking a look at your money psychology and see where you tell yourself no. Now the no isn't terrible, but if you continue down the road, so this is what people do, and this is how the brain works. If you continue to repeat a thought over and over and over, eventually it's going to come pretty negative.
Mm.
Why? Because our brain will shift to the negative because that's really how we're often trained to survive. Don't do this, you could get killed. Don't do that, that's going to, cause problems. You could get arrested, this could happen. It's fear, 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 fear.
Mhm.
So when it comes to getting out into the world and starting a life or continuing a life in some way, shape, or form, it can be pretty scary.
With that, that's a lot, and it's a great conversation, and I don't want to end it, but I know there's time. How do people get in contact with you? Because I want to make sure that it's in the description.
It will be.
I know it because I'm going to put it there. So how do people get in contact? What is the best way for people to LinkedIn, or is it your website, or?
LinkedIn, my website's great. I offer a free 30-minute consultation and a free money type quiz on my website. So
Okay.
you can hop on and find out like, oh, what are all these money archetypes and what does this mean? Well, we're going to be talking about your money brain and we're going to be talking about whatever the money questions you have.
I usually end with a word. It depends on who I'm talking to, but either a word of hope, a word of joy, or a word of empowerment. In 30 seconds or less, empower our audience to do the right thing about money.
Use your money winning power.
This has been another edition. This has been a great edition of the Question Guy podcast. My name is Dr. Keith McNally, and I'm here with Jeannie Dougherty, and I'm going to get it right. Thank you so much for joining us today. Jeannie, thank you for this conversation.
Thank you.